We're, we are continuing to study the concept of meter and rhythm and sound, and that song Uptown Funk not just being a fun way to start your morning, and Bruno Mars always will get you up early, get you moving or feeling the movement early in the morning. Well, not so early in the morning. It also is a way to emphasize how strong beat and the bass in that song is very, very powerful. Almost everything that, by the way, what's his name? Mark Ronson. Everything Mark Ronson produces is based on a very, very powerful rhythm. He did the same thing with what's her name? Who passed away? Write it in the chat. What's her name? I can't think of her name.
Amy Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse. Yeah, Amy Winehouse. It's all based on that. He got that incredible bass, bass section, not bass section, horn section, and so you can listen to his songs. So despite being a couple Jewish guys, Jewish people, they have at least a strong appreciation and sense of that. And by the way, the idea that I got from on Monday that the La Di Da Di came from Mark Ronson. He's the one who made this point about how La Di Da Di is like the most sampled song, and how that all the hooks and the beats of that were turned into many different versions. Okay, so questions. We are going to continue. If people have comments about what we're doing, I know that some people wrote me in the last couple of days. I'm freaked out about the meter. We are going to go back into breakout rooms today. I think that is the best way to study it, and that's generally what we do if we were on campus. We would be breaking up into not separate rooms but separate groups, and we can share your misgivings or your expertise, whatever it is. It is a skill. So unlike most of the things we're doing this semester, well, everything we do in English literature is a skill, but sometimes that skill is more implicit. I just see it this way, I see it that way, but we are training you in critical skills generally. I don't know if this is a critical skill. I gave my philosophical take on it on Monday, that you are hearing patterns of sound. So in that sense, it is akin to the training that we are always doing to listen more closely, hear what is there with greater acuity and attention. But obviously, yes, this is something you have to learn. Some of you are getting it very, very well. For others, it's a bit more challenging. And I always encourage people, share that. Several of you have come to me, but share those misgivings with other people. And because all of you are learning it now, I learned this many years ago, and it certainly was very hard for me. I don't think I still tell my kids till this day, I don't have a good ear, not for sound and not for rhythm. And certainly, and when I was in university, I had no concept of meter. It was completely foreign to me. It was something that was mentioned, and I would always wonder, what is this? So being challenged now in your first year, midway through your first semester, to do this is something that is good for you. And I think that you can get advice on how to master this from each other rather than really from me. All I can tell you is what I think works. And I'll just keep saying the same thing over and over again, which is probably not helpful. But there is definitely someone among these 38, 37, 36 people here who is in the same place. Either I've got this aspect and yet I'm missing some parts of speech. I also said on Monday that I think it tracks closely with native languages, because if you speak Italian or if you speak Spanish or Arabic or Hebrew or Russian as your native language, you'll hear different parts of speech, and you'll have different you'll have different biases. You'll emphasize different parts of language. But if you're saying that none of this makes sense to me at all, which some of you still are writing me, I challenge you, just say the names of your family, say the simple words that are around you, morning. And if someone comes up to you and says morning, they're not completely speaking English. If someone says, I was thinking over this other examples, and this might not be helpful because I hear these examples everywhere and maybe you don't. But if someone says, I saw my French neighbor this morning, if someone says to you, Paris, they're probably speaking English or a language like that. If they're saying Paris, Paris, right? They're probably speaking French. It all depends on the different accents. And so you know this. You hear these, we were saying in one of the breakout groups the other day, based on how someone says your name. We have two Yuvals here, right? So someone said about Yuval or Yuval. If someone says Yuval, you know they are not a native Hebrew speaker. They say Yuval, they are a Hebrew speaker. You can hear, there are so many things that your brain computes instantaneously in milliseconds. And it's all based on these concepts of meter, of stress, well, not necessarily of meter, but of stress. And also, we are expanding it into meter. I promised you today, I'm just a little annoyed. I can't get my second camera working. It has been working all week. I'm going to try one more time. That's what I was doing when I was listening to the song. I have the books that I want to use with you. I don't know why it's not working. And we can go through the. Oh, there it is. Okay, finally, now it's working. So we can go through the Lama Lama and the. Lama Lama and the Cat in the Hat, which is what we are going to do first off this morning, and then we are going to work on harder stuff. We are still, so this is, again, this whole week is different than what we ordinarily do in the sense that we're just working on very basic skills. Hold on a second. On very basic skills and just learning a recording stopped. I don't know why. Sorry. Oh, we're still recording here. It's different recording stuff. And we are going to continue that recording. And hopefully you guys will continue feeling more confident about this as we get to next week and even approaching the midterm. If you feel completely lost, definitely seek out help from other people at this time, or seek out help from me. We're going to have a little more practice doing this over the weekend, just practicing this with poems that we've already learned, and we will. It's expected that you can do this on a basic level, not with the hardest poems in the world, but hopefully have some understanding of it. All right. So you watched online, and I had my kids watch this also. The hip hop versions of this particular fun, very popular, last couple decades children's book, and here it is. Let me switch to it at least for me. There we go. And the book is as the groups. This is just a review of what you guys were doing on Monday. You were looking at how this story from Lama Red Pajama reads a story with his mama is fully trochaic. One thing I would say about this story is that if you think about it, 1, 2, 3, 4, that being a line, even though it's written as two separate lines, this is really just this is one line and this is one line. That's the way I would count it. Therefore, Lama, Red Pajama, that is 4 trochees. 4 trochees makes it trochaic tetrameter. That was the question that you guys did with your groups. And it keeps going in that direction. There's one other little detail that we want to pick up on. So if I am scanning it, it would be a little boat slash a little boat reads a story. And again, the way to know this is focus on multisyllabic words. Story, like it could be reads a. Yes, it could be either one. You don't really know, but you know that the word is story. There's no other way to say story. If you say story, you're speaking another language. Story, it has to be story. Your brain knows that. And if you are having trouble, just calm down. Each of you knows how to say the word story. I have absolutely no doubt about that. Neither do you. And so all you have to do is slow down and figure out these various steps. The word is story. Okay, I know that. That means the emphasis is on the sto part, the first syllable. The second syllable is not stressed. The way I markate that, the way I scan that is with a slash here, little boat there. What does that look like when it is an emphasis and a non-emphasis, a stress, non-stress? That is itself a trochee. Is that the way it scans in the line? Because sometimes, like pajama, it is unstressed, stressed, unstressed, pajama. That doesn't tell me anything. You just have to look at the way it spits out in the whole line. Reads a story, and then it keeps going with his mama. Mama also tells you very clearly that is a trochee. Because this is a children's book, because it is simple, because it is something that any 2-year-olds can hear. It's not trying to hide the meter. It's not trying to do any disruptions. It's not doing anything fancy the way that we will see with Shakespeare or elsewhere. Instead, it is giving you a very clear sense of the meter. What is the meter of all this? Trochaic tetrameter. 4 trochees in a row per line, if we're counting the way that you would, probably the way that the author wrote it. This is a line, this line. It's just laid out differently in the book for it being a kid's book.
Professor, I have a question about the pajama. Sorry, pajama.
Let's go back to pajamas. Yeah, we should all go back into pajamas at 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Because it's 3 syllables. Like I would have put it as tactile.
Yeah. So that's a little different. So pajama, and here's where we're going to malign the text, and then I will erase it later. You have to realize that when we do this practice of what's called scansion, that's what we're doing now. We're scanning the text to see how the beat works out on the words. It doesn't matter that it's a one long word. I'm allowed to break up this word. What I wrote here, it's a little faint, is I did the line that breaks the foot in the middle of the word pajama. Even though it is one word pajama, it includes the end of the first foot and the beginning of and the whole of the next foot. It goes scan, stress, unstressed, stressed, unstressed. So pajama and many long words, temperate in Sonnet 18, those words can be broken up. There are other longer, and we're going to see that here in this next book in a moment. There are other books, or other poems really, we're not talking about books, but other poems where there are shorter words that fit into 3 trisyllabic feet. And the main thing that you should have had this in your notes from Monday, all of you, but something just important to just remember, very technical, is that I am and trochee are our feet that are made up of 2 syllables, while anapaests and dactyls are our feet made up of 3 syllables. And yet, the words that actually make up those 3 syllables, an anapaest or a dactyl, it could all be 1 syllable. It could be 3 separate words. It could be 2 words, like a lambriut. It could be it could be a disyllabic and a monosyllabic, a 2-syllable word and a 1-syllable word. Or it could even be parts of words, or it could all be one word. There are some words, as you had on your homework last week, that are all 3 syllables, and the word itself makes up a single anapaest or dactyl. But often in poems, that's not the case. One example from your homework was Illinois. The word is not Illinois or Illinois, it's Illinois, the state where Chicago is located in the middle of the United States. Illinois itself is an anapaest. The fact is, by the way, there aren't that many words that are themselves, there are some, but there aren't that many words that are natural anapaests or natural dactyls. Obviously, the ones that I'm giving you for these exercises are, but in the grand scheme of things, there aren't that many. All right, let's just do one more page. People who did this with their groups did it very successfully in notebooks by writing it out, and that's probably the best way to do this. But if you want to write on screens, if you want to do it in a different way, whatever suits you best. Mama kisses baby's hair, same thing. Mama kisses, not kisses. that doesn't make sense. You can't say the word kisses. Kisses. You can also look up all these things, by the way. Any word that you don't know how to scan it, you can look it up in any dictionary. You can look up in a dictionary and it will generally tell you. The one annoying thing, there's this fantastic dictionary that is in Google, by the way, just the first thing in Google, but it actually usually doesn't. The one thing I guess they thought it wasn't necessary because they have the audio next to it, is they don't actually tell you. But the Merriam-Webster one and most other dictionaries will tell you. And let me give you an example. Let me just show you this. Or dictionary.com, I think, tells you also. There is a way to look at it here. This is one word, and let me find also the Merriam-Webster. If, and this is not the case for you, but it will be the case for when we get to harder words in the future. If you have difficulty figuring out, I just can't hear, is the word temperature, is the word something else? Here's downstairs. So I said the Google definition actually doesn't tell you. MW, we'll send it on its way. Merriam-Webster will tell you. And it tells you right here at the beginning. I guess it's too easy a word. With harder words, obviously, well, that's annoying. Sorry, I just gave you a bad example. That it is. Oh, here it is. I had the wrong thing. That was not there. Downstairs. So it's showing you that the slash is before the down part in the pronunciation. A little easier way to read it. So there it's there, but you might not be familiar with the connotation, with the denotation. Downstairs, here they're showing you downstairs. They put it in bold. This is dictionary.com, which by the way is just a web beacon. They're just tracking everything you do. I don't use the thesaurus and dictionary too often because it is just a way to get stuff onto your computer. Downstairs. Downstairs, they're emphasizing the down to show you that is where the stress is. Just as here, the slash is on the first syllable, showing the same thing. Let's close now this one and go back to what we need. Let's finish up with the llama llama. Okay, it says llama goes downstairs. Llama red pajama feels alone without his mama. Now one last thing is stressed. Let's go back to the other camera, sorry. And this is about as far as you guys got. And with this, we will conclude. Llama, red pajama, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed. But there are some lines, like feels alone, like this next line. Feels stressed. The word alone is unstressed, stress. So let's keep, and there you also break up the foot in the middle. You would do the vertical line after the A. Stressed, unstressed, feels alone, stressed. Where's the missing unstressed syllable? It is missing. It's not there. Here's the last thing we just say, right? You got that? Stressed, unstressed, stressed. It froze, it looks like. My Epic Cam again froze. The missing last beat doesn't tell you that much about the whole poem. And some of you may ask, does this make that whole line a different meter? And the answer is no. If 90% of a text is 1 meter and there's one little missing beat here and there, or even one line that's different, we still call the poem after the prevailing meter. And here, just one missing beat, it's what I said to some people, it's what gives space to those singers to, do their freestyling in that empty, it's a has, it's a rest. It is a missing beat, but it doesn't suspend or cancel the entire meter. So don't get confused about those kinds of things. You can ask, why'd you do that here? Why'd you do it? I don't think there's great meaning behind it. It just creates a little bit more, it is just a rest. She didn't do it so that Ludacris and Camila Cabello and others could do their freestyling. That was done later. However, in other poems where sometimes it is deliberate, where there's a missing last beat or a missing beat every here and there, sometimes it does. Perhaps you can come up with a meaning. My point is simply don't get too hung up on that. Okay, let's now open the other poem, the other children's book, and if everyone is with me, that's terrific. And if not, you can certainly tell me to slow down. But I'm going to go now to The Cat in the Hat. I hope this can reconnect here. Doesn't seem to be. Let's see. And you guys can tell me if this is starting to come together, because after this we're not doing the children's books anymore. But again, the reason to do this, it tells you that I can do this. My brain can function. My brain can process this.
I have a question, Dr. Feldman.
Yeah.
What if we have in one sentence 2 words that have different different beats? Like one is an anapist and one is in a trochee. Is that even possible?
Yeah, it's possible, but it's not such. It would be an irregular rhythm. It means that there is rhythm in that line, but it'd be irregular rhythm. Now, if every line is like that, which would be pretty unusual, every line is made up of first an anapest and then a trochee. I wouldn't give that to you as an example. That's pretty confusing. However, you can assume that it is that is being done purposefully. For the most part, you have to be pretty sure that what you're seeing is what you expect, that you are correct in your analysis, in your scansion. And if you're absolutely sure, and you still see every line being made up of an anapest and a trochee, or an IM and an anapest or a dactyl, that's an irregular. There's no standard. You can't call that trochaic or anapestic. There's no mixing of the two.
So it's an irregular.
To answer your question,
the same.
It's an irregular rhythm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, as I also said to some people on Monday in the groups, what we're looking at is traditional poetry, which is still used. It's always used in hip hop. You can see here it's used in contemporary children's books. Even the next one is pretty old, but it's been used in children's books for ages, and it still is used. It's used in songs, in pop songs. Most contemporary poetry does not use meter anymore for the last, let's say, 60 years or so. Contemporary poetry, since the 60s on, much of it is in what's called free verse. You don't have to write that down just yet, but we'll get there. Free verse means it is not using a meter, is not using a regular rhythm. Some poets today still do, and that is often a choice. But for hundreds or even thousands of years, in all different cultures, there is a meter, there is a rhythm, and so it behooves us. It sort of we owe it to ourselves to figure this out and to understand it. Okay, and we're going to end with today we're going to end with 2 poems that indeed, you read them, Dust of Snow and Papa's Waltz, that not only are strongly metered, have a strong rhythm, but they are also kind of even about. Certainly, one of them is explicitly about this. Okay, the Cat in the Hat. So again, my secondary camera froze. Don't know what's going on with that. But let me unplug it and plug it back in.
I have this.
Nope. But the text has the Cat in the Hat by this very famous American mid-20th century children's book author named Theodore Geisel, who went by the name Dr. Seuss professionally. Very interesting figure, very prolific, and a revolutionary author of children's books. That's all you need to know. That's our children's books education a bit for today. Wrote probably his best known book called Cat in the Hat, which uses a rather unusual and funky, uptown funky rhythm here. So sorry I can't get it going here, but I have the PDF also. Okay. So the PDF, and you guys can all link to it also. You can see it. It's in the course links for today here. So and by the way, these are probably our hardest classes to do the the way, remotely, what we have to do for this semester. So, because it is simply, this is a lot of working in groups and working in this is not easy stuff. It's very technical, and we'll be using the board a lot. So the fact that you're able to do this at all is a testament to you. I know it's a little dry and boring. I'm well aware of that. And I'd be playing all these videos for you in class, but I think having you watch them at home is not that much fun. So here, at least you had a chance to do it yourselves. Let me just see if I have. Okay. So here, the sun did not shine. Let's make it a little bigger so you can at least see something of it. Okay. Here is an example of, I forgot, who was it, by the way, that asked about the mixing of anapest and trochees?
I did.
That was Chana. Okay, so Chana, here is an example of that precisely. The first line, the sun did not shine. It was too wet to play. Now you guys, I don't know if anybody did this already for homework. I said you can do it. You don't have to. I do not require midweek homework. But if you write this down, or if you sound it out in your heads, what do you get? Let me open the chat. You can write it in chat or answer out loud. The sun, just that first line. Did anybody figure out? The sun did not shine. There's no multisyllabic in this whole page, by the way. Thank you. There is no multisyllabic, thank you, Elni. Iambic tetrameter, not quite. It could be, but not here. Well, I mean, really, it'd be hard to be. It'd be missing. I am followed by an anapest. Excellent, Itamar. You got a good sense. Itamar, do you play an instrument, Itamar? You could write it in chat. But anybody, by the way, who plays an instrument has a huge advantage here, especially if you play something like the drum or guitar, like a highly rhythmic instrument. So it is, and I am. The sun did not shine. Now, each of those words could be stressed if it were a different sentence, but the natural way, without fighting it, is that it is an I am, a wrapping phase. We all go through our wrapping phase of life. So the sun did not shine. It is the sun, unstressed, stressed, that's an I am, did not shine, unstressed, unstressed, stressed. Unstressed, unstressed, stressed. The sun did not shine. What's that? What kind of beat is that? What kind of rhythm is that? What kind of meter? None. Let's keep going. Maybe it will consolidate or coalesce into a meter. It was too wet to play. Now I hope I'm not maligning this. So we sat in the house all that cold, wet day. Now, let me read it the way I would read it, or you can read it to yourselves alongside me. Let's start just this one little page from the beginning. The sun did not shine. It was too wet to play, so we sat in the house all that cold, wet day. Right? You can imagine reading that to a younger sibling, or a child, or a relative. One more time. The sun did not shine. It was too wet to play, so we sat in the house all that cold, wet day. Now, some of you were asking me, no performer really on stage emphasizes the iambic pentameter of Shakespeare. Definitely true. How artificial is all this? That was your question. Here, just read it the way you would as a normal person. Like I said, read it, pretend you're reading it to a kid. The sun did not shine all that cold, wet day. That is, I think, a natural reading. And it sounds like I am very clearly emphasizing after that first line, it was too wet to play, so we sat in the house all that cold, wet day. Are there other ways to read it? Maybe. I don't deny that. But I think this is the natural way of reading it. Meaning that the natural reading, I have my camera back, so let me use it before it shuts off again. The natural reading is to, and I will go to the PDF, which I have here, but it's a little heavy. The that the, stop the share, sorry, and go here, the other camera. The natural reading emphasizes the sun did not shine. So we can put the slash here. It was two, slash on two, wet to play, slash on play. So where's my pencil? So we sat, and here are last year's marks again. So we sat in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. You guys can argue something else, but the second, the third, and the fourth lines are all anapest. It was too wet to play. That the third and final words of lines 2, 3, 4 are all anapests. And what did we say that first line was? We said it was an iamb, not an anapest. But really, what it seems to be, if all these other lines are anapestic dimeter, anapestic dimeter or dimeter, meaning two anapest, with the breaks here, here, and here, and here.
Feldman?
Then the first line might also just be missing the first beat of the anapest. That all the lines are anapests. All the lines, as Danielle Balous correctly says, are made up of two anapests, known as anapestic dimeter. And the first line also might be part of the same pattern. It just starts on sort of the downbeat. It's missing that opening beat. It's not really an iamb and an anapest. It's just a broken anapest. Dvora, or dvora. We can decide as the semester goes along.
I got a little lost in the second line. It was too wet
Good,
to
the
play.
second line. So you read it.
It was too wet to play. So it would be anapest followed by another anapest?
All of the lines are.
Because
yes,
so
that's
it
what we're
would
saying.
be stressed.
It was too. No. Anapest is unstressed, unstressed, stressed.
Because it would be stressed. Is it stressed
No.
in this? So it's not stressed.
Unstressed. It was.
And then
was too wet to play.
So the stress.
Now I'm going to take these away before my wife finds out. No one tell Alana what's going on here.
The stress is on the two, yes?
Yes, on the two with a double with a double O. It was too wet to play. Now let's see if this continues. I'm gonna open up the where is
the first line just to.
so what's going on with that first line? You want to talk about that more?
Yeah. It's not.
Go ahead, Yuval. So what do you want to say about the? Let me turn them to my other camera so we can see each other.
Letters are the stress one. The first line.
Okay, so the first line, you give it a try. What do you think, Yuval? You're Yuval Cherry, right? Yuval Cherry.
Chunky.
Say it again.
Chunky.
Cherry. Okay. Yes.
Version. Okay. So the sun, I guess sun is stressed. Day is unstressed. Did not, both unstressed. And then shine is stressed.
Good. So what is that on its own? On its own, that makes it into a nothing. Into an iamb and a
An iamb feet and then becomes an anapest feet.
Yeah. It's which is like nothing. There's no name for that.
Okay.
But as what my point was, if you notice how the rest of the line plays out, you start to see, oh, there is actually a pattern here. There is something going on. And what is going on here? Well, it seems to be that although the first line doesn't give me a strong indication of anything, the other lines seem clearly to be anapestic, meaning they are all unstressed, unstressed, stressed. And so let's see if we can extend that to the first line also. Here we go. We have it, the sun did not shine. And then continuing on, it was, let me make this a little bigger. And make it a bigger line. Okay. It was too wet to play. Okay, and all the other lines are going to be the same way. So, sorry, you know what I can do? I can just copy and paste this. There we go. So we, don't move it. So we sat in the, and you guys can just read this to yourselves as we do this. Sat in the, and this I want to slash it.
Dr. Feldman, you can just
There we go.
copy paste. You can do Control C, Control V.
Yeah, it wasn't, but then it wasn't moving. It wasn't. They don't move. I have a very old computer. My computer is about to be what's called. It's about to go from what's called vintage into obsolete. All that cold what day. So now about that first line. The first line is very similar. My only problem with the first line, Yuval and everyone else, is that it's missing one unstressed beat. Now let's use our heads. It doesn't seem to be all that different from everything else. All the other lines are unstressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, unstressed, stressed, anapestic dimitir. All that's missing that first line is one unstressed opening beat. What I would suggest to you is use your heads and realize, oh, this is one of those instances when Feldman said it can be a single missing beat for any kind of reasons. We usually find that at the end of a line. Here, it's at the beginning of a line. Where? Right here. Sorry that I have a fill-in here. I want to do no fill-in. There. Here is an empty missing beat, just at the beginning. And like a lot of jazz or rap or other kind of ragtime, it starts on a downbeat. It has right? It starts on the second beat. So it's not that it's not anapestic. The whole page is what? The whole page here is that is the meter. Should we continue and just look at this for another page? It's not the entire, and by the way, it's not the entire poem, not the entire, or in this case, a book, but it's most of it. I sat there with Sally. I sat there is that's a disruption. I sat, can't it be, I sat, let's just read it to ourselves. I'll read it, but you guys read it to yourselves on mute. I sat there with Sally. We sat there, we two. And I said how I wish we had something to do. Too wet to go out and too cold to play ball. So we sat in the house. We did nothing at all. Okay. I sat there with Sally. We sat there, we two. I sat there with Sally. We sat there, we two. That's not exactly anapestic dimitir, or at least it's not standard. It's not fully scanned the way that it would be. And I sat there with Sally. We sat there with two. But here in the third line, it clearly is. Let's go back to these shapes. And I said how I, excuse me, that's wrong. I said how I wish there was something to do. Now, actually, the first two lines really are anapestic dimitir, but they're a little confusing because it's missing. I don't want. I'll just say this very quickly for people who are a little more with it. Ignore this if you are not. It's using this final unstressed, and you have to apply it here to the next line. It's enjambed, and it is actually fully anapestic. I sat there. Here, it's missing the beat, just like on the first opening line. It has a missing beat right here. And I sat there with, and this continues the same pattern of iambic, of unstressed, unstressed, and then the next line, Sally, and then this belongs to the next line. Okay, end of aside here. And I said how I wish we had something to do. Too wet to go out. This follows exactly the way the opening stanza had. This is too wet to go out. It starts on the second unstressed. It's again missing one here. So this follows precisely what the opening pattern was. And too cold to play ball, so we sat in the house. We did nothing at all. I'll take Devorah's point in a second. I just want to finish this one little stanza to show you that.
Stress? Yeah. Okay.
The boats are like that. We sat there. We did nothing at all. And here I'm going to add one more element, just that we are following what we're supposed to be doing. And then you guys can ask your questions and we'll move on to harder things. So what is this? Let me choose another color here. What do I need to do here? I think colors are here. Is that correct? No, that's wrong. I don't know how to change this color. Anyway, yeah, it is here. Yeah, no, that's also blue. Sorry, maybe it's this one. There we go, okay? Now I'm dividing them up into lines. See the nothing, even though it's only 2 syllables itself, and the word nothing, this is exactly what I want you to pay attention to. The word nothing on its own is a trochee, but in this line, nothing is the end of the first anapest and the beginning of the second anapest. And to scan it, you break it up into the foot division falls right in the middle of nothing. No thing. I guess this can be like, millimeter that way. Okay, capiche? So this whole stanza follows the exact same pattern as the first one. Here, this you might throw your hands up and say, as someone did, this is fully subjective. Actually, it's not. You just have to sali. You do the division here. This stanza sali, and then the li belongs to the next line, and then the next line is going to be once again. It's going to be we sat there, we too. So, and the is going to be stressed. I wouldn't ask you guys to do a stanza like this one. This stanza is more challenging. But once you get there, you realize, oh, and you just start realizing these patterns can continue everywhere. This is not what I need. I need something. I need one of these. We sat there, we too. Sorry, I didn't need another stress. I forgot that the 2 is not yet marked. That's what a page looks like. Does this continue the anapestic dimitir? Yes, it does. If I want to do these throughout, I would do it just, sorry. That's why these lines don't always, the cut and paste isn't always so helpful. We sat, there we too. This is a little long, let me make it shorter. And you could do this everywhere. The line breaks, the foot breaks rather. Too cold to play ball, that one is an easier line. So even though, and this is why I told you, even though simpler words might make it seem like a easier poem, you're not using long, hard words, it actually sometimes requires greater skill, both in scansion and also in writing it. Too cold to play ball. I would argue to all of you, I would opine, I would submit to you, there is no other way to read that line, at least not in this context. You can say you have to know how to read it already, and then you'll understand. Once you know the meter, then you can know how to read it. No, I think that a natural reading is too wet to go out and too cold to play ball. And too cold to play ball. Yeah, I can imagine a sentence where you say is it too wet to play and too cold to play ball? Like you can imagine a sentence, but a natural reading when you're just sitting down to read this book for fun. And it is a fun book to read. And too cold to play ball. So we sat in the house. We did nothing at all. That will go on and on and on. Why does Dr. Seuss do this? Well, we can talk about that in a second after we get a few more questions. So I hope this didn't completely confuse people. Again, any 2-year-old hears this. It's obviously being done by the poet intentionally. It's not random that all these stresses fall out. Sally, to answer one question that Maria had, yes, it's Sally, correct. The first Sally is stressed, unstressed. So there was a question before Sarah from Devora, I think, and then Sarah, and then anybody else. Devora had a question a few minutes ago.
Yes, I'm confused with the Sally, since the sa is unstressed and the li is stressed. Does that not change? Sa.
Say the name. Say the word.
I mean, the sa is stressed and the li is not stressed. Doesn't that change the whole rhythm? Because I sat there with Sally. It's like I am, and then it's anapest. But why is
there's an extra beat? There's an extra beat. Yeah. So this is a little confusing. So ignore it if it's not helpful to you. But what technically he's doing is he's borrowing the beat. The text is borrowing the li, the last syllable of Sally, and using it for the applying it to the next line. It is the first unstressed beat of the next line.
Oh, okay. So it's flowing into the next line. So
Yeah,
it would be
it's enjambed in a certain way. It's metrically enjambed.
So does that make the second line also anapest, anapest? If we're taking the unstressed li, okay.
Bravo.
And then,
yes.
And then
well
the whole I sat there with Sally. That whole part is anapestic Demeter.
the whole thing is basically the entire poem is. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sarah and anybody else?
So I'm just wondering about understanding how to read a line. So you need to read all the words together. It's not like you can
just read it naturally. This text is done brilliantly. A normal reading of a parent tired at night reading to their kid, or a kid reading to themselves, will actually fall out on these lines. It's not always like that. Sometimes the meter is a little forced, but it's not. Natural read is we did nothing at all. We did nothing at all, right? That is the stress falls, meaning the pattern is the natural reading.
Right. So it's about listening for where the emphasis is within the natural reading.
Yeah, so we sat in the house, we did nothing at all. So all we could do was to sit, and we did not like it, not one little bit. And then something went bump. How that bump made us jump. Look at that line. How that bump made us jump. That is the way that's how any kid would read that line, or any adult would read it to a kid. How that bump made us jump. It is on the 2 pages later. Let me get to it. We'll share it. And this takes a fair amount of skill. Not crazy skill. It's not impossible. And it's not impossible to hear it. My suggestion to you is that you are hearing it. How that bump made us jump, that too is anapestic. The emphasis, the accent, the stress is on bump and is on jump.
Does it have the importance of the words, though? It's almost like a power politics of the words within a sentence. Like whatever's more important.
The use. It's the use. Yeah, it's not always that case, but in this book it is, and that's what makes it a very fun book. That meter, that pattern, that way of reading this text, and you can go through the whole text. You have it all in PDF form. You can sense it. How that bump. Sideways. Other way. How that bump made us jump. And even, let me find another good line here, because it goes in and out of what he was doing elsewhere, where he's borrowing the stress. And Sally and I did not know what to say. Did not know what to say. Just that sentence, did not know what to say. Now, if you're speaking to your friend, it is certainly possible to say a line, I did not know what to say. I did not know what to say. Just as if you remember a few weeks ago, Jacobson was saying there are many different ways to say the same word. Here, in the world of meter, there are different meters, different stresses I can give to this line. He uses almost all monosyllabic words. In this entire page, there is two words that I see that are disyllabic: mother and Sally. That's it. Everything else is all monosyllabic, meaning one syllables. So there are other ways you could say, did you know what to say? I did not know what to say. I did not know what to say, right? But in this book, in this sentence, in this instance, then Sally and I did not know what to say. That's the natural reading. Anything else is forced. You can force yourself into making a mistake, but the book is leading you. The meter, the pattern, the prosody, meaning the whole world of soundscape in this book is leading you to read it as the way it is scanned in the rhythm. Then Sally and I did not know what to say. Our mother was out of the house for the day. The rhyme, the same, all of it. But our fish said no, no, right? There too, once again. But our fish said no, no. Make that cat go away. All anapests. Okay, back to you guys, and then back to actual poetry after this fun interlude. I hope fun interlude. It would have been harder to do all this just using Shakespeare and Yeats. Why? Why does he do this? What's the point of anapestic to meter? Why the meter? Why use meter in the first place? And why anapestic? What is the effect, I should say, in a different way, in different other words, what is the effect of the anapestic? Here is open discussion. Now we're into the world of, until this point, for all of this week, we've been in right answer, wrong answer. There's only one way. Fun flow. Elni, you want to expand on it, Elni? Yes. But now we're in the world back of our usual interpretation.
Yeah, sure. As in, I think that it's a dimeter, means that it moves quite quickly, which gives it a fun feeling. And yeah, the anapest, it creates a rhythm that it's a bit boring and then it gets exciting, and it's a bit boring and then it gets exciting. And I think that adds to the feeling of fun. Which,
if you know the book, is exactly the situation, the context of the book. Boring then fun, boring then fun. And it also gets a little manic. Dun 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 dun, right? Which is exactly, I did not expect you to come here so soon, right? It has that feeling of, it keeps you moving, it has a rhythm to it, and it's a little crazy, it's a little zany, it's funny. Anapestic can sound, when done like this very famous example, it can be very, very funny. Anything else about why meter in general? It keeps the reader awake. It keeps you alert. Yeah.
Makes you anticipate also.
What, Nico? Say it again.
Makes you anticipate also.
Anticipate, right? Because the anapest is a little longer than I am, so it's dun 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 dun, right? It makes you keep moving on to the next part. It also, the mayhem, very good, Devorah. It also, as we read earlier in the semester, it's very memorable. It can help you remember it. That's meter in general. And finally, who said this? Someone already wrote this. Even baby, Itamar, absolutely. This is actually true. I have colleagues, I know there are researchers who have proved this. Some of whom I've met, that kids, even before they are verbal, even before they understand the semantic element, they can feel the propulsive rhythm, the rhythm that is within the language. This dovetails with what I was saying on Monday, that sometimes the rhythm can come before, the sounds of words come before the meanings. That is, of course, how kids learn how to speak. Some of you who are studying linguistics know this. Just trying out different morphemes, da, 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 do, dee, right? That sound of language is pre-semantic, but it is also, in a sense, linguistic. It's verbal in its own way, even if it's before actual words. The emotion is in the rhythm. Excellently said, Tamar. Precisely. Any other comments about this before we get back to actual poetry? Do people have still, if anybody's completely lost, definitely, clearly Maria's got this down very well. Anybody who has, we can go back to the breakout rooms. Now, we're gonna end today back in breakout rooms for our last, however long. We're not gonna come back here. I want you to work on two harder texts. One, you have the answers for it. That is the Robert Frost. We're going to be studying, as we go in the semester, a fair amount of Robert Frost. Let me show you in the Limida. There is a poem that I assigned of his that you've all prepared, hopefully, if you are following homework. Dust of Snow. Dust of Snow is a very short poem, and you have the answers of how to scan it in the, I think it's on the same, is it on the same link, or is it a separate link? I forgot if it's all the same link or not. No, here's just the poem. And Dust of Snow Scanned, I'm sorry, I didn't put it right next to it. Dust of Snow Scanned is down there. We're going to put ourselves into the groups. Work on that poem first, if you can. It is only 8 lines. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I rued. You could write the whole thing down in your notebook. It's probably the easiest way. If you want to do it on a screen, you could also do it virtually the way that I've had to do it here. And then the other poem that you can start working on, and if you do it, then you'll already have done a lot of the homework. This is one of 2 poems that will be for homework, is Scanning My Papa's Waltz. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to discuss it, but I'll probably just record this in advance because we might go into other things, or maybe if I don't, and if I don't get a chance to record it because I have another lecture tomorrow, we'll start Monday with my Papa's Waltz. So it's a little longer, but it actually kind of is an easier poem to scan because it's a little more obvious. So in the breakout rooms, talk about it. Talk about this whole topic with your colleagues. Get help if you need it. Offer help if you can. Work on Dust of Snow. The answer to Dust of Snow is all here. So this is not a trick. This is college learning as opposed to high school learning. I'm giving you the answers, but obviously the point is to learn the skill. You will eventually be tested on something where you don't have the answers. So don't cheat yourself. Here is the answer, but you can do this now. And then my Papa's Waltz, and then we'll do also and if you do this, save your work because I'll ask each of you to upload it. It's a very straightforward homework for this upcoming weekend. It's going to be my Papa's Waltz and another, actually 2 poems that we've already studied, scanned. And the best way to do it is to just print it out or write it out by hand, either one. If you don't have a printer, it's fine. You can just write it out, a sonnet and another very short poem, upload them by Monday, and that's it. With that, we are done for today. Are there any questions before I stop the recording for our very distant participants? Okay. So with that, we are done. You stay in your group as long as you need to finish Dust of Snow. If your group is very motivated, you guys can keep going. I'm not calling everyone back. I wish everyone a pleasant and healthy weekend. Thanks for your attention during this challenging, technical, and somewhat dry unit. Next week, we're on to some more fun things. We'll be using Hamilton next week, so that might be familiar to some of you, probably not all of you. And we're going to be using that to do some things about rhyme, alliteration, and so on. All right, glad some of you know it. Thanks, everyone. I'll visit you in the breakout rooms. So it just takes a minute.